"I want to have your child," said the orc woman. But the man was frozen by her reason. There are 6 words that can make a man question everything he knows about the world. 6 words that can turn a quiet winter evening into the kind of moment where your entire life splits into before and after. "I want to have your child." Owen heard those words on a Tuesday, which felt wrong somehow, like world-altering declarations should come with better timing. Maybe thunder, dramatic music, something other than the sound of wind rattling the shutters of his small cabin in the Northern Territories. The orc woman standing in his doorway wasn't asking, wasn't pleading. She stated it like a medical diagnosis, like she was informing him of a broken bone that needed setting. Her name was Crucia. He knew this because 3 weeks ago, he'd spent 14 hours keeping her from dying. Let me back up. Owen was a doctor, the only doctor within 40 miles of anything resembling civilization, which meant he saw things most physicians never had to handle. Frostbite that turned fingers black. Hunting accidents that left men holding parts of themselves that should have stayed inside. Births that went wrong in ways that made him question if he believed in any merciful God. And sometimes, very rarely, he saw orcs. The Northern Territories existed in that gray space between human lands and orc territory. A buffer zone where both species pretended the other didn't exist, unless absolutely necessary. Owen had built his practice in a village called White Pine, which consisted of 43 buildings, 67 permanent residents, and a general agreement that what happened past the tree line was none of their business. Most days, that worked fine. Then Crucia had arrived. It was the kind of winter storm that made old men reminisce about worse ones. Snow fell so thick you couldn't see 3 feet ahead. Wind howled like it had personal grievances against every living thing. Owen had been preparing to close up for the night when Callum, his best friend and the village's most competent hunter, kicked down his door. "Got a problem," Callum said, which was his way of saying something terrible had happened. Behind him, 2 other hunters were carrying something large and green. "Absolutely not," Owen said immediately. "She's dying. Then let her die somewhere else." Callum gave him that look. The one that said you're better than this and you know it. The one that always worked, damn him. Crucia had been dying in the technical sense. Punctured lung, severe blood loss, 3 cracked ribs. Whatever had attacked her, and Callum swore it wasn't them, that they'd found her like this, had done a thorough job. Owen spent that night elbow deep in green blood, which turned out to be chemically similar enough to human blood that most of his medical knowledge still applied. Crucia fought him the entire time, even unconscious. Even dying, her body refused to quit. By dawn she was stable. By noon she was awake and demanding to leave. By evening she was gone. Owen figured that was the end of it. He'd done his job. She'd survived. They could both go back to pretending the other species didn't exist. He'd figured wrong. 3 weeks passed. Owen had almost convinced himself it was just another strange night in a career full of strange nights. Then Crucia appeared at his door on that Tuesday evening, healthy and whole, and saying 6 impossible words. "I want to have your child." Owen stood there, blinking, trying to process. She was taller than him by at least 6 inches, broader, built like someone who'd spent their entire life doing things that required extreme violence or extreme strength, often both. Her skin was the deep green of forest moss. Her hair, black and thick, fell past her shoulders in a complex series of braids. One of those braids had silver thread woven through it. "I'm sorry," Owen managed. "What?" "You heard me correctly. I think I'm having some kind of stroke." "You're not." She stepped inside without invitation, closing the door behind her. The cabin suddenly felt much smaller. "I need a child. You will provide one." Owen's medical training kicked in. Check for signs of head trauma. Evaluate mental state. Determine if patient is experiencing delusions. "Crucia," he said carefully, "do you remember me treating you?" "Yes." "Do you remember hitting your head?" "No." "Are you experiencing any dizziness, confusion, unusual thoughts?" "My thoughts are perfectly usual for my situation." "Your situation," Owen repeated slowly, "being that you've decided you need a child from a completely different species?" "Yes." She said it so matter-of-factly that Owen almost laughed. Would have laughed, if not for her eyes. They had the look of someone who'd already fought this battle internally and won. Or lost. He wasn't sure which. "Sit down," he said finally. "I'll make tea." "I don't need tea." "I need tea. Sit." She did. The chair groaned under her weight. Everything in Owen's cabin was built for humans, meaning everything was slightly too small, too fragile, too obviously wrong for someone like her. He prepared tea with hands that shook slightly. 3 years of medical school, 4 years of practice in the Northern Territories. None of it had prepared him for this exact brand of insanity. "Explain," he said, setting a cup in front of her that she eyed like it might explode. Crucia wrapped her hands around the cup. Her fingers were scarred. "The kind of scars you earned, not received. My bloodline is dying. That's cryptic. It's literal." She took a breath, the kind of breath that came before terrible truths. "My clan has 9 females of breeding age. In the last generation, we produced 32 children. In this generation, we've produced 4, all male. The bloodlines are weakening. Matron Vorza says within 3 generations, our clan won't exist." Owen processed this. "That's concerning. But surely there are orc physicians." "There are no orc physicians." Crucia's voice hardened. "We have shamans, healers, bone setters. No one who studies why bodies fail at the level you do. No one who sees patterns in blood and bone and time. And you think the solution is crossbreeding." The word hung in the air like smoke. "You can't be serious. Do I seem like someone who jokes?" She didn't. Crucia had the energy of someone who'd never joked about anything in her entire life. "Even if this were biologically possible, it is. Even if it were, there's no way your people would accept." "They won't." She set down the cup. "That's not your concern." "It absolutely is my concern if—" "Will you do it?" Owen stared at her. This creature who'd walked into his home demanded the impossible and acted like it was a perfectly reasonable Tuesday evening conversation. "No," he said. "Absolutely not." Crucia nodded, like she'd expected this. "Then I've wasted both our time." She stood, moved toward the door. Owen should have let her go, should have locked the door, should have pretended this conversation never happened. Instead, he said, "Wait." She turned. "The silver thread in your braid," Owen said. "What does it mean?" Something changed in her face. Not much. Just enough to tell him he'd struck bone. "How do you know about that?" "I notice things. It's what keeps people alive. It means my bloodline is marked." Her hand moved unconsciously to the braid. "When a warrior's family tree weakens, we braid silver to show the clan. It's meant to be temporary. You fix the bloodline through strong matches. You remove the silver, and yours is still there. Mine will be there until I die." She met his eyes. "Every female in my family wears silver now. We've tried everything. Every match the matron suggested. Every ritual the shamans performed. Nothing works. We are watching ourselves go extinct in real time." Owen felt something shift in his chest. The thing that made him a doctor. The thing that couldn't walk away from problems that needed solving. "I need to think," he said. "How long?" "I don't know." "Think faster." She opened the door. Cold air rushed in. "Every day you wait, my people die a little more." Then she was gone. Owen sat in his cabin, holding a cup of cooling tea, trying to understand what had just happened. The next morning, he did what he always did when his life became incomprehensible. He found Callum. Callum was in his usual spot behind the trading post, skinning rabbits with the efficiency of someone who'd done it 10,000 times before. He looked up when Owen approached, took one look at his face, and sighed. "What happened?" "I need advice." "That's never good." "The orc I treated." "Crucia. You know her name?" "Everyone knows her name, Owen. She's been hanging around White Pine for 3 weeks, buying supplies, trading, being polite, which is somehow more terrifying than if she were threatening people." Owen sat on a nearby stump, told Callum everything. By the end, Callum had stopped skinning, was just staring. "So," Callum said slowly, "she wants you to—" "Yes. And her reason is—" "Her bloodline is dying. And you're considering—" "I don't know what I'm considering." Owen put his head in his hands. "This is insane." "It's insane," Callum agreed. Then, "But is she lying?" "About what?" "About her bloodline. About the dying. Is she lying?" Owen thought about Crucia's eyes, about the silver thread, about the way she'd said, "Every day you wait, my people die a little more." "No," he said finally. "She's not lying." Callum returned to his rabbits, worked in silence for a moment. "My grandfather used to say that orcs don't lie about death. They're too practical. Death is death. You face it or you don't. That's not helpful." "Wasn't meant to be helpful." "Was meant to be true." Callum set down his knife. You want my real advice? Yes. Don't do it. That's it? Don't do it, Callum repeated. Don't do it because even if you succeed, even if you somehow help her, you'll be the human who bred with an orc. You'll be other. And other doesn't survive long in places like White Pine. I'm already other, Owen said quietly. I'm the man who patches up whoever needs patching regardless of what color they bleed. That's different. Is it? Callum didn't answer, which was answer enough. Owen walked back to his cabin. His mind churned. That evening, Elspeth showed up. She was his apprentice. 17 years old, smart as a whip, clumsy as a newborn deer. She'd been with him for 6 months, learning medicine because she'd decided village life was too small for her ambitions. You seem distracted, she said, dropping an armful of supplies. Also, I saw an orc near your cabin this morning. Should I be concerned? You're always concerned. Yes, but usually about things like improper sutures. Orcs feel more immediately concerning. Owen considered how much to tell her, decided truth was better than rumor, explained everything. Elspeth dropped 3 more things in the process. A bowl, a bandage roll, her entire worldview apparently. That's, she searched for words. Unprecedented. That's one word for it. Also biologically fascinating. If cross-species breeding is possible, the implications for genetics alone. She caught herself. But obviously you're not actually considering this. Why obviously? Because you're... She gestured helplessly. It's against nature. Is it? Owen leaned back. Nature doesn't care about species lines. Biology does what works. If 2 organisms can produce viable offspring, who's to say that's against nature? Maybe that is nature. But society? Society said I was against nature when I decided to treat anyone who needed treatment. Society says a lot of things. Doesn't make them true. Elspeth picked up the dropped bowl. So you're seriously considering this? I'm considering that a woman came to me with a problem, a medical problem, and I'm a doctor. This isn't a broken bone, Owen. No, it's worse. It's an entire bloodline bleeding out, and she's asking me for help. Elspeth was quiet for a long moment. Then, if you do this, I'll help however I can. You don't have to. Yes, I do. She met his eyes. You taught me that medicine isn't about what's comfortable. It's about what's needed. So, what do you need? Owen felt something unknot in his chest. I need to talk to her again. Then go talk to her. He did. Crucia was camping at the forest edge. She'd built a small fire that produced almost no smoke, a neat trick that spoke to someone who knew how to hide. She looked up when he approached, unsurprised. Decided? She asked. No, but I have questions. Ask. Owen sat across from her. The fire was warm. The night was cold. Everything felt surreal. Why me? You saved my life. That's not a reason to... It's the only reason. She poked the fire. In my clan, debt is sacred. You gave me life. I owe you life. This is how I pay. That's insane. Is it? You need something from me. I need something from you. This is how societies were built. Human. Exchange. This isn't an exchange of goods. This is intimate. Crucia finished. Yes, but less intimate than death. Less permanent than extinction. Owen processed this. You don't care about me. No. And you understand I don't care about you. Yes. So this would be practical. She met his eyes. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm asking you to help me save my people. Your feelings are irrelevant. It should have been insulting. Instead, Owen found it oddly clarifying. This wasn't about romance. It wasn't about desire. It was about survival. Tell me about your clan, he said. Crucia did. She spoke for an hour. About her people, about bloodlines that went back centuries, about warriors who'd earned every scar and shamans who read patterns in smoke and bone, about a matron named Vorza who ruled with iron wisdom and who'd watched her clan shrink year by year. She spoke about her mother, who'd died in childbirth delivering Crucia, about her grandmother, who'd been the last strong bloodline before the weakening began, about the 32 children of the previous generation who'd become 4 children in this one. We're practical people, Crucia said. We know what dying looks like. This is what dying looks like. And you think a child with me would... New blood. She said it simply. Strong blood. Blood that hasn't been diluted by generations of the same families crossing the same families. You don't understand orc society. We're... She searched for words. Insular. We breed within our clans because that's tradition. That's honor. But honor doesn't matter when you're extinct. Your matron knows about this? No. So you're acting alone? Yes. And if your people found out, they'd exile me. She said it without emotion. Or worse. Probably worse. Then why? Because someone has to try. Krusha looked at him across the fire. Someone has to look at the extinction of their entire people and say, I will do the unthinkable thing. I will become other. I will carry the shame so that others don't have to die. Owen felt something crack open inside him. This wasn't insanity. This was desperation wearing a practical face. I need time, he said. You have 3 days. She stood. After that, I try someone else. There's no one else. Then after that, I'm out of options. She looked down at him. 3 days, human. Decide if you're brave enough to be hated for the right reasons. Owen spent the next 3 days in a strange fog. He saw patients. He treated injuries. He pretended everything was normal while his entire worldview rearranged itself. Father Rowan found him on the 2nd day. The priest was old, eccentric, and spent more time talking to his herb garden than to people. But he was sharp when it mattered. You look troubled, Rowan said, appearing in Owen's doorway like a particularly well-meaning ghost. I'm always troubled. It's the job. This is different. Rowan invited himself inside, brought the smell of rosemary and mint. You look like a man trying to solve a moral equation with too many variables. Owen almost laughed. That's accurate. Tell me. And somehow, Owen did. Maybe because Rowan was a priest. Maybe because he was old enough to have seen most types of human stupidity and remained unsurprised. Maybe because Owen needed to say it all out loud to someone who wouldn't immediately judge. Rowan listened without interrupting. When Owen finished, the priest was quiet for a long time. Do you know what I love about plants? Rowan said finally. This is a very strange pivot. Bear with me. Plants don't care about purity, about keeping bloodlines clean. You can cross 2 completely different species, and if they're compatible, they'll create something new. Something that might be stronger than either parent. He plucked a leaf from a small pot. This is a hybrid. Basil and holy basil. Shouldn't exist according to traditional thinking. But it does, and it's more resilient than either original plant. Are you comparing me to basil? I'm saying nature is more flexible than we like to believe. Rowan set down the leaf. The question isn't whether this is natural. The question is whether this is right. And is it? That's not for me to answer. Rowan stood. But I'll say this. In all my years, I've learned that most suffering comes from people following rules without understanding why the rules existed in the first place. Maybe some rules need to be challenged. After he left, Owen sat in his cabin and thought about rules, about society, about the space between what's done and what's right. On the 3rd day, he found Krusha. I'll do it, he said. She nodded once. Conditions? You answer every question I have. About orc biology, about pregnancy, about birth, about everything. I'm not doing this blind. Agreed. And if this works, if there's a child, you don't disappear. You let me help. You let me monitor the pregnancy. You let me be there. Why? Because I'm a doctor. And if I'm doing this, I'm doing it right. Krusha considered, then agreed. And one more thing. Owen pulled out a small knife. I need to understand what that silver thread means. Really means. Her hand moved to her braid. Why? Because if I'm helping you, I need to understand what you're risking. Krusha was silent. Then, slowly, she unbound her hair. The silver thread wove through a thick braid that ran from her temple to the base of her skull. Up close, Owen could see it wasn't decorative. It was a mark, a brand made of metal and shame. When a bloodline weakens, she said quietly. The matron braids silver into the hair of every female in that line. It tells the clan, this family is failing. Their strength is gone. They are walking toward extinction. And you can't remove it until the bloodline is proven strong again. Until we have children who survive, who thrive, who prove we're not dying. Owen reached out slowly, touched the silver thread. It was cold. And if you do this, if you have a child with me, then I wear silver for the rest of my life. She met his eyes. Because even if it works, even if the child is healthy and strong, they'll know it's not pure orc blood. I'll have saved my clan by destroying my honor. That's not fair. Fairness is for species that aren't dying. Owen understood then, really understood. Krusha wasn't doing this for glory or love or any of the things that motivated most people. She was walking into permanent exile, permanent shame, permanent otherness, to save people who would hate her for it. I need you to understand something, Owen said. If we do this, I'm choosing you. Not just this arrangement, you, as someone worth protecting. I don't need protecting. Yes, you do. Just not the way you think. He let go of the silver thread. Everyone needs someone who sees them, really sees them. And I see you, Crucia. I see someone so brave she's willing to become a monster to save her people. For the first time, something shifted in her face. Something that might have been surprise, or gratitude, or the beginning of trust. Then we have an agreement, she said. They did. What followed was the strangest 3 months of Owen's life. Crucia stayed near White Pine, camping in the forest, visiting his cabin with the regularity of any patient. Owen studied orc biology with the intensity of someone preparing for the most important exam of his life. He learned that orc women cycled differently than human women, that their pregnancies were shorter, 8 months instead of 9, that their bodies were designed for brutal efficiency because orcs who weren't efficient didn't survive. He learned about their culture in fragments, about how orcs valued strength but defined it differently than humans expected. Strength wasn't just physical, it was endurance, loyalty, the ability to carry burdens that broke other people. And slowly, almost without noticing, he learned about Crucia. She was 32. She'd been a warrior since age 15. She'd killed her first enemy at 16, saved her first life at 17, earned her first scar at 18. She didn't enjoy violence but accepted it as necessary. She liked spicy food, cold mornings, and the sound of wind through pine trees. She'd never been in love, never wanted to be. Love was a luxury for people whose bloodlines weren't dying. Do you regret it? Owen asked one evening. They were in his cabin, reviewing biological charts he'd drawn. Not having love? You can't regret what you never wanted. But do you ever wonder? No. She traced a finger along one of his drawings. Love is choosing someone. I was chosen by my bloodline. There's no room for both. Owen thought about that, about choices and duty, and the spaces between them. What about you? Crucia asked. Have you loved? Once. What happened? She died. Fever, 8 years ago. Do you miss her? Every day. Crucia was quiet. Then, I'm sorry. For what? That I'm not her. She met his eyes. That this is practical instead of meaningful. Maybe it's both, Owen said quietly. Maybe meaning comes from what we do, not why we do it. Something passed between them. Not love, not desire. Something deeper. Recognition, maybe. Two people who'd looked at the world and decided to do the hard thing regardless of cost. 4 weeks into their arrangement, Crucia told him it had worked. You're certain? I'm certain. Owen felt a strange combination of relief and terror. Then we need to start monitoring. Regular check-ins. I need to track. Yes, your human medical obsession with details. But she was smiling slightly. I'll cooperate. She did. Over the next months, Owen watched Crucia's body change in ways that fascinated and terrified him. Orc pregnancies progressed faster. By month 3, she showed significantly. By month 5, she moved like someone carrying a very small, very determined warrior. The village noticed. People whispered, stared. Some were curious, others were hostile. Father Rowan remained supportive in his eccentric way. Callum remained skeptical but loyal. Elspeth took notes with the enthusiasm of someone witnessing medical history. But most people looked at Crucia and saw wrong. Saw other. Saw the thing that didn't belong. Owen felt their judgment like weather. Constant, inescapable. Then, 6 months in, Thok appeared. Thok was an orc warrior. Tall, scarred, with the energy of someone who'd never lost a fight and didn't plan to start. He arrived in White Pine with 3 other orcs, asking questions about Crucia. Owen found out when Callum dragged him to the trading post. We have a problem, Callum said. Thok stood in the center of the village, surrounded by wary humans. He looked like violence contained in skin. When he saw Owen, his eyes narrowed. You're the healer. I'm a doctor. Same thing. Thok stepped closer. Every human in the square tensed. Where is Crucia? Why? Because Matron Vorza sent me to find her. Thok's hand rested on his weapon. Because she's been gone for 7 months. Because when orcs disappear, clans worry. Owen's mind raced. She's safe. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. Thok studied him. Then, quietly, the silver thread is missing from her braid. Owen's heart stopped. When an orc removes silver, Thok continued, it means one of 2 things. Either the bloodline is saved or the bearer is dead. Since Krusha is not dead, I must assume. His eyes widened. No. Listen. What have you done? Thok's voice dropped to something dangerous. What have you done? The situation escalated quickly. Thok demanded to see Krusha. Owen refused. Other orcs arrived. Humans armed themselves. The village balanced on the edge of violence. Then Krusha walked into the square. She was 6 months pregnant. Visibly. Undeniably. The silence that followed had weight. Thok stared. You didn't. I did. Krusha raised her chin. And I'd do it again. You've destroyed yourself. I've saved my bloodline. With human blood? Thok's voice cracked. With filth? With weakness? With strength? Krusha put a hand on her swollen belly. This child has both bloods. Both strengths. This child is what we need to survive. This child is abomination. Owen stepped forward. This child is innovation. This child is what happens when people are brave enough to adapt. Stay out of this, human. No. Owen moved to stand beside Krusha. You came here demanding answers. Here's your answer. Krusha came to me because her bloodline was dying. Because your clan's traditions were killing you. And she was brave enough to do the unthinkable thing to save you all. Thok looked between them. Matron Vorza will exile you. Probably, Krusha agreed. Your clan will disown you. Most likely. You'll be other. Forever. I know. She met Thok's eyes. Tell Vorza I'm sorry I couldn't save us the proper way. Tell her I chose survival over honor. Tell her. Her voice softened. Tell her I hope she understands someday. Thok ground his teeth. The sound was like stones scraping. She won't. Then she won't. The orcs left. But Owen knew they'd be back. Knew that Krusha's clan would eventually send more than questions. We need to prepare, he said. For what? For when they come to take you back? Krusha shook her head. They won't. I'm exiled now, whether officially or not. The moment I showed them this, she touched her belly. I became separate. Other. Gone. Then where will you go? She looked at him. Really looked. Where do you think? Owen understood. Here. If you'll have me. It's not safe. Nowhere is safe. Krusha managed a smile. But at least here, I'll die near someone who sees me as more than shame. So she stayed. The village adapted slowly. Some people never did. Others, the ones who remembered Krusha saving a child from a frozen river, or helping rebuild a barn, or simply being kind, those people adjusted faster. Father Rowan blessed her belly, which scandalized half the village and delighted him enormously. Elspeth took notes constantly, documenting everything for what she called historical medical significance. Callum remained skeptical but started teaching Krusha to hunt local game. If you're staying, he said gruffly, you should know which animals are worth eating. And Owen watched it all while preparing for a birth that terrified him. 8 months in, Krusha went into labor. It happened fast, faster than human births. Orc physiology didn't believe in long, drawn-out processes. Owen delivered the baby in his cabin with Elspeth assisting and Krusha being the most stoic patient he'd ever treated. She made one sound, a low grunt that might have been pain or effort or both. Then the baby was there. The child was neither, or both, or something new. Green skin, but lighter than full orc. Human proportions, but sturdier. Tiny tusks that would probably grow. Eyes that were dark and deep and completely unreadable. Boy, Owen said, his voice shaking. Krusha reached for the baby, held him with the careful intensity of someone holding the entire future. He's perfect. He's beautiful, Elspeth whispered. He's ours, Owen said, surprising himself. Krusha looked up at him. What? I said, Owen swallowed. I said he's ours, if you want, if you'll let me. I know this was supposed to be practical, but I can't. I can't just walk away from this. You want to be his father? Yes. You'd choose us, knowing what it means? I already chose. Owen touched the baby's small hand. Months ago, I just didn't realize it until now. Krusha's eyes were wet. Orcs didn't cry easily, but when they did, it meant something. His name is Kale, she said softly. It means hope. Kale grew, fast. By 6 months, he was the size of a human 1-year-old. By a year, he was walking, climbing, exploring, with the relentless curiosity of someone who didn't know he was supposed to be impossible. The village accepted him in fragments. Children were easier. They saw another child and didn't question the details. Adults took longer, but eventually even the skeptical ones had to admit Kale was good, smart, kind, and strong. So strong. Crucia taught him about orc culture, about honor and loyalty and strength. Owen taught him about medicine and curiosity, and how to see people instead of categories. Together, they raised something new. 2 years after Kale's birth, Matron Vorza came. She arrived alone, which was either very brave or very stupid, probably both. Owen met her at the village edge. She was old, ancient even, but she carried herself like violence was always an option. "You're the human," Vorza said. "I'm Owen. You're the human who ruined my warrior. I'm the human who helped her save your bloodline." Vorza's eyes narrowed. "Show me." Owen led her to his cabin. Crucia waited outside with Kale. When Vorza saw them, she stopped. Kale was 2. He was building something with rocks and sticks, completely focused. Crucia watched him with the expression of someone who'd fought gods and won. "This is the child?" Vorza asked. "Yes." "And he's healthy?" "Very." Vorza moved closer, studied Kale with the intensity of someone reading prophecy. The boy looked up, saw her, smiled. "Hello," Kale said in perfect Orcish. Vorza inhaled sharply. "He knows both languages," Crucia said quietly. "Both cultures, both strengths. He's other." "He's other," Crucia agreed. "And he's perfect. And he's proof that we don't have to die." Vorza was quiet for a long time. Then, "Your clan wants you back." "Do they?" "They want the solution you found. 4 females have already asked about humans." Vorza's smile was sharp. "You broke tradition. And now tradition has broken." Crucia stood. "I won't come back unless your exile is lifted. Unless the silver is acknowledged as removed. Unless your son is recognized." Vorza nodded. "These things will happen. Eventually. When pride becomes less important than survival." She turned to Owen. "You understand what you've started?" "No." "Good. Honesty." Vorza laughed. "You've created a new bloodline. One that will be watched, questioned, studied. Your child will never belong fully to either world. He'll belong to both," Owen said. "That's better." "Maybe." Vorza looked at Kale. "Or maybe he'll spend his life being too orc for humans and too human for orcs. Maybe you've created beautiful suffering." Owen felt cold. "Then we'll teach him to be strong enough to handle it. Teach him fast. The world is cruel to new things." Vorza started to leave, then paused. "Crucia, Matron, you were right." The words seemed to cost her. "I'm sorry it took me this long to say it." Then she was gone. Years passed. Kale grew into something remarkable. He had his mother's strength and his father's curiosity. He learned to hunt from Callum. He learned healing from Owen. He learned combat from Crucia. He learned to exist in the space between worlds. Other mixed children followed. Not many, but enough. Enough to prove it was possible. Enough to show that bloodlines didn't have to be pure to be strong. Owen and Crucia never married. Orcs didn't have marriage the way humans did, but they built something deeper. Partnership. Loyalty. The kind of bond that came from choosing each other every day, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. On Kale's 10th birthday, Owen found Crucia standing at the forest edge, staring at the mountains where her clan lived. "Thinking about going back?" he asked. "Sometimes." She didn't look at him. "Then I remember what I have here." "What's that?" "You. Kale. A life we built from impossible choices." She turned. "I don't regret it. Any of it. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts." She touched his face. "The hard parts are what made it real." Owen pulled her close. "I want to have your child," he said, echoing those words from years ago. Crucia laughed. "You already did. I know, but I want you to know I'd choose it again. Every time. Even knowing what it cost. Especially knowing what it cost." He kissed her forehead. "Because some things are worth the price." They stood there as snow began to fall. The first snow of winter. The kind that covered everything in white and made the world look new. Kale ran up, breathless. "Father, Mother, look what I made." He held up a small wooden carving. It was crude but recognizable. A human and an orc, standing together. "It's us," Kale explained proudly. "I'm making a whole collection. Of all the families that are different." Crucia knelt beside him. "It's beautiful. Blood of my blood." "Why do you call me that?" Kale asked. "I'm only half orc blood." "Because blood isn't what makes you orc." Crucia tapped his chest. "This is." Your heart, your loyalty, your strength. The blood that flows through you matters less than the choices you make with it. Cale considered this seriously. Then, so I get to choose what I am. You get to choose, Owen said. Always. That's the gift of being both. You get to decide. Cale smiled, then ran off to show his carving to other children. Owen and Crucia watched him go. Do you think he'll be all right? Owen asked quietly. Being other? Being different? No. Crucia's voice was honest. He'll struggle. He'll hurt. He'll spend his life explaining himself to people who don't want to understand. Then why? Because he'll also be extraordinary. She turned to Owen. Because he'll know what it means to build bridges between worlds. Because he'll be proof that different doesn't mean wrong. That's a heavy burden for a child. All children carry heavy burdens. Crucia smiled. We just taught ours to carry it with strength. Owen pulled her close. I love you, he said. I don't think I ever said it properly, but I do. I love you. Crucia tensed, then relaxed. I know. That's not a proper response. It's an orc response. But her voice softened. I choose you, every day. That's stronger than love. That's loyalty. That's blood bond. That's everything. Owen understood. For Crucia, choosing was love. Staying was love. Building this impossible life was love. Then I choose you too, he said. Every day, forever. They stood together as snow fell around them, watching their son play with children who didn't care about bloodlines or species, who just saw another kid. In the distance, Owen could see the mountains where Crucia's clan lived. Closer, he saw White Pine, the village that had learned to accept the impossible, and beside him stood Crucia, wearing no silver in her hair, free, whole, home. Some victories are won not on battlefields, but in the quiet moments when we choose others over ourselves, when we decide that love is worth the cost, when we build something new from broken pieces and call it family. Crucia had come to him with 6 impossible words. I want to have your child. She'd been asking for help, for survival, for a chance. What she'd found was something neither of them expected. Not love in the traditional sense, but something deeper. Partnership, purpose, proof that the world was bigger than the boxes people built around it. As night fell, they walked back to their cabin, their home, their impossible, beautiful, strange life. Kyle ran ahead, still carrying his carving, still creating, still building bridges between worlds with the unconscious grace of someone who'd never known there were supposed to be walls. Behind them, snow covered their tracks, making everything new again, making everything possible. Blood makes you orc, loyalty makes you family. And sometimes, when you're brave enough, love makes you whole. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the walls we build and the bridges we refuse to cross, then it did exactly what it was meant to do. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose love even when the entire world says no. Sometimes being other is the price we pay for being real. Leave a comment telling me what you thought. Share this with someone who needs to hear that different doesn't mean wrong. And remember, the strongest families aren't born from blood. They're built from choice. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep choosing courage over comfort. Stay strong. Stay different. Stay real.